It's my pleasure to be speaking tonight with painter Jessie Rasche of South Dakota about her exhibition, The Spirit of Prairie Life, on view in the lobby galleries, both floors of the lobby galleries here at the Hopkins Center for the Arts. Jessie, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'll clap and we'll edit in all the thunderous applause that the group has for you. Jessie, could you, the exhibition is titled The Spirit of Prairie Life. I know that you're a transplant to the prairie from the Pacific Northwest. Can you tell us about the inspiration for the show and how it seems to me like the work expresses a real love for prairie life. And did you have it before arriving in South Dakota, or did it grow on arrival? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. I am just thrilled to be showing there, and you have such an amazing space, and your mission and your curation is wonderful, and I'm so thrilled to be showing there. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so yeah, I've been here in South Dakota on the eastern edge of South Dakota for 9 years, and it's very different from where I came from. And I was just kind of on a mission when I got here to find what is special about this place, what is different. I'm very passionate about visual things, so I was looking for, the color of the sky is completely different and the horizon is lower. And then there are all these small things that are wonderful that just took a long time to really notice. I've never been around herding animals so much. I've seen them at farms, but for several years I could look out my studio window and see a herd of cows. And the first time I saw them, it was just like Christmas morning. I ran and grabbed my paints, like, oh, this is wonderful. And their energy is so relaxing, and it seems like people who have grown up with them, that's the thing they all say, like, yeah, being around the animals, it was just so calming and wonderful.
Had you much experience with cattle before the move?
No, no, not at all. Going to, I've seen cows before, and I've been on a couple tours of farms, but that's about it. Yeah.
Sure.
So I didn't move here with the intention of, coming here to paint. I painted already as a big part of my life, and I was painting professionally, and my husband was offered a different position. And so it made sense for us to come here, and I figured I can paint anywhere, and I just really wanted to look for what is different. And some of it just hits you on the head, like the horizon being lower, and then some of it sneaks up on you, like, it's 30 degrees below and there are animals out there, like, and that's kind of what inspired this. The Spirit of Prairie Life is just how much life is always out in rural prairie land constantly. You look anywhere and the snow is just starting to melt and it still feels like you can hardly go outside, and the grass is alive and the trees are alive and the birds and the rabbits and all kinds of animals are out there, and it just seems amazing. Like I just every time it's like, how do they do that? It's it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I believe in your statement you reference a certain, maybe this isn't the word that you use, but a certain interconnectedness, a certain kind of symbiotic relationship. Is that important for you to capture the essence of that interconnectedness, or am I just breathing that into the work while looking at it?
No, that's something that I've always been really interested in, is this, like how we're connected to each other. And so for a long time, when I first started out, as when I quit my day job and started being a professional artist, I was painting all these little teeny paintings of moms and babies bonding, and what I was really trying to get at was what was between them, not the individual people, but the thing that connected them. And I feel like when I paint animals, it's the same thing. I'm trying to look at what's in between them, and part of that is just capturing them being there, and then there is the connection, and hopefully that's evident. And then part of it I tried to really lean into with like blending certain areas so you can't necessarily tell the difference, and trying to play with those ideas. And so yeah, that's something I'm just really fascinated with, is connection. Like how can animals be connected to the land or be connected to each other, and how can people be connected to the animals and the land? And
Yeah. Can you describe your process? A lot of the works being of the outdoors suggests that maybe they were done plein air. And so I wonder if you work outdoors, or if you're primarily a studio painter. And then do you use drawings? Do you begin with drawings? Or do you dive in and work directly in paint?
Yeah, so a lot of stuff happens usually before I grab the paintbrush. And I'm working more towards doing plein air. I'm sort of a fair weather plein air painter. So generally I'll have an idea of something I want to capture. I'll want to paint cows together, for instance, or when I found out there were pelicans here. What a wonder, right? So I would go and search out the pelicans and take as many photos as I could. And so I'll have this idea of what I want, but then I'm open to what I can catch and find. And then I'll take all my photos back to the studio and go through them and find the ones that that I know I could have some passion about painting. And usually I'll have something I want to say, and then maybe 2 or 3 photos together would say that. And so I'll start by cropping in and sort of drawing in that way, just with cropping and editing a little bit. And then a lot of times I'll just live with the photos for a while and see what they bring. And sometimes I just immediately jump into painting, and then sometimes I will live with a photo for a couple years before I'm ready to paint from it. and then I jump into painting. So yeah, and as for drawing, I love drawing. I actually have this little YouTube show where I draw with a couple people on Friday mornings, and it's kind of the first thing we did in art school, and I drew for a long time, even before that when I was a teenager, and but when I'm making paintings, unless it's a portrait, I don't usually draw with a pencil. I draw on the canvas. And I'm not afraid to move things or wipe things off. And so I feel like drawing with the paintbrush it feels like it's in the same family, if you know what I mean. And
Absolutely. Could you describe what, because I think many people, when they think of drawing, it's exclusively with dry mediums. But when you speak of drawing with the paint, can you describe what you mean by that?
yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the canvas, and sometimes I will tone it, which is where you add just a little bit of color to make it not white anymore. And one of the benefits is it just messes it up to begin with, so you never have to do a first mark.
Yeah.
And there's no intimidation of like, it's perfect now.
Yes.
And part of that is just that it lets you erase a little bit, so you can start with a mid-tone and then look for, where the lightest parts, and you can erase with a rag to get those. And so to me, that is drawing. But most of the time I start with a white canvas, and I'll just dip my brush in the paint. I thin it down so it's kind of easy to manipulate. And I'll just start sketching in the things that are most important. And so if I have something like this where I have people I'm trying to show, I'll kind of make some ovals for their heads and make kind of stick figures. And that way I know how much of the space they're taking up and if they're fitting on the canvas nicely. And if I don't like it, I just wipe it off with the rag and choose a different color so I can tell the difference and sketch them somewhere else. And I've been experimenting with, my work's already pretty loose, but I'm trying to loosen it up even more. And so I've been experimenting with not drawing, which is kind of what I did with this painting, where I do more indicating of where I want a certain color.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to wait to narrow it down until so far in the process that a lot more of my edges are lost, which by that I mean, like you can see the edge where her chin is, but the edge where her cheek is kind of disappears. And so that's that kind of lost edge idea that I've been really leaning into, and you can see that in some of the work there, and I get really excited about edges. Did that answer that question about drawing?
It did, yeah. Medium selection, the majority of the works on display are oil paintings. Some are oil paintings on canvas and some are oil on panel. But there are also some acrylic paintings and there's a watercolor. Do you have, it would seem to suggest that oil is your favorite medium. Can you confirm or deny that? And then given that you have ability with multiple mediums, how do you make the choice? What drives medium choice for you?
Yeah. this might sound kind of weird. I haven't talked about this a lot, but um, I went to art school right after high school, and I loved it. It was amazing. And I had so much fun. I was actually a printmaking major.
Yeah.
and I kind of love so many different types of art making. And I do love all those mediums you mentioned. And then after that, I went to school for psychology and tried some different things, and I ended up doing jobs that were art related, but in 2007 it's like I want to be an artist, and all that time I had been making art on my own time, and I would grab out whatever material I wanted. If I wanted to melt crayons and make something cool, I'd do that.
Sure.
But when I decided to make art my career, and it's like I need to learn how to do one thing as very best as I can. And so I when I get excited about a project, I just throw myself into it and spend a lot of time on it. And I just wanted to throw myself into learning everything I could about how to paint with oils. And it really was just this decision of I'm not doing this just for my own having fun anymore. Like I just want to see how good I can get. Like if I can be great someday, I want to do that. And I feel like focusing like 90% of my creative energy on one medium will help me do that. And so, it really was that kind of a decision. And I still do pull out other materials sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, but I'm distinctly aware of like, okay, now I'm just having fun. I'm doing something that's just purely for fun, and not specifically like trying to get better and better at figuring out this one medium. If you know what I mean. Does that seem weird?
No, but what I think is interesting is the pursuit of better. And I think in artistic practice, it's slippery because it's less objective, it's more subjective, and better for you might mean worse for another person. So what does it mean to be better for you? What is that? What are you in pursuit of?
That's really interesting. And I heard somebody once say, if everybody kind of likes what you want, what you do, then you're not really pushing out of the normal range of doing things. And then when you push out of your normal range of doing things, then you might have some people who love it and some people who hate it. And it's true. You're not going to make everybody happy. And I know that when I push more and more into this like looser, more impressionistic kind of form that I'm chasing, I know that some people will look at that and say, you didn't spell it out for me. It's frustrating, or I don't like that. And I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to make myself like sort of universally pleasant. if I have some people who love my work, to me that's wonderful. And if some other people don't, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, but um, but so I think for me, what really feels like when I make a painting and I say, yes, that's what I'm chasing, that's what I really want. Um, it has the um, enough room for people to find something themselves. Like everything is not spelled out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not frustrating to most people where you look at it and it's like, I feel like I'm supposed to see something, but I don't. Um, you know, but I don't want to. I want something that is an enjoyable experience for most people, but or at least for well, for as many people as it can be. But I want it to be a really beautiful experience for some people, and I want the experience of walking up close to it to be different and interesting and engaging. Like you see something new when you get close to it. You see brush marks that are really unique, that that are I don't want to say precise, that seems wrong, but that are there thoughtfully and are like, so each mark kind of has its purpose, and so there's this brevity of trying to say the most possible statement with the fewest number of marks. And so for me, a lot of times I'll spell something out really clearly with like 20 marks, but that's not what I want. So once I find the thing I'm trying to say, I'll mix up a bunch of paint and try to get that one mark that would say that whole statement instead of the 20 marks. And to me, that's what I'm really chasing, is to have as much of that kind of succinct statement as possible. And yeah.
That's fascinating. It sounds like you're describing a process of editing, not unlike, say, a writer might spill out a ton of words, but then excise that which detracts from their major thrust. I mean, all those words are meaningful and they have, they're capturing an idea, but you could pare it down and be more poetic in capturing that thing. Is that fair to say?
That's a wonderful way to say it. And yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way before, but that is exactly what I'm trying to do. And I think I am trying to search for the poetry in a thing. Yeah.
And what I think I don't think that's apparent in the work itself. Like it to me, as a viewer, it feels like each mark was, or each brushstroke was an immediate and primary action that was like inevitable. So in that way, you've camouflaged that action of building up the work and being maybe overly descriptive, overly illustrative, and then dialed it back to be more painterly, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like the more succinct I am, the slower I'm going, and yet the faster it looks like I went. And
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know how to. I don't know.
Do you find over your years of practice that you're approaching or moving in a direction where you feel less of the many marks are necessary, and that you're able to capture that more loosely and poetically earlier, or do you think, is it still a necessary part of your process and one that you can't imagine pruning?
Yeah, it's funny. I think just because of who I am, I've always been very loose.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've always appreciated in art, and I never had to overcome anything to be loose with my work. But because I'm on this kind of quest to be the best painter I can be, I'm very specific about what I'm trying to learn. So, when I first started doing those little portraits I told you about, I was also doing these little teeny paintings of still lifes and things, and just really trying to figure out, how do I capture things accurately? Like, how do I capture the color accurately? How do I mix color in a way that seems like I'm putting down what I see? And how do I actually see what color a shadow is? And I spent a couple of years just really focusing on that, because it's a challenge. And I was not concerned at all about how many brushstrokes I put. I was just trying to put the right color, if you know what I mean. But right now, the challenge that I'm really working on is getting brushstrokes that I love. And so, and I'm also working a lot on depth of, I really want some stained canvas or panel to be there and some thick paint to be there, and to have a little bit of difference that you can see. And so working on those two things, I'm acutely aware of how many brushstrokes are there. And so I think this is sort of thinking about that thing is kind of new for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and when you talk about trying to achieve a certain degree of depth, I think many of us immediately assumed you were talking about illusionistic depth of capturing the fields and whatnot, but you're talking about actual topography on the canvas, the tension between thin paint application and thicker, more impasto brushstrokes.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I do love atmospheric depth. I think that's wonderful to capture, but yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with this surface quality right now. So.
Fascinating. You identify as a contemporary impressionist, and the concerns of brushstrokes and the concerns of how textured or topographical the surface is. I mean, these are all very, very formal concerns. What brought you to Impressionism as philosophically driving your painting pursuits?
Yeah, I love the idea of having light be the subject rather than the objects being the subject, and I feel like that's a pursuit that a lot of impressionists have had, and this sort of joy in color, and I just feel like I just feel this connection to the great impressionists currently and then through history in similar pursuits and technical pursuits, but also that pursuit of light and color, and I just feel this connection to it. It speaks to me, and I feel like those are the same goals that I have. And
Sure, sure. What are you currently working on?
yeah, so I got a grant from arts. Here, let me say it right. From the South Dakota Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts, to do a project that I don't have a formal name for yet, but I'm calling it Painting South Dakota, where I'm going to different locations to kind of capture the breadth of the landscape here. I'm in the prairie, and I've been focusing on painting the prairie for several years, obviously, and there's also some really rocky land here, and some very kind of rugged, different types of landscapes. And so I'm working on a project right now to go to the locations, get a lot of source photos, do some plein air paintings, and come up with a body of work. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, dynamite. Congrats. We'd like to open it up now to any questions. There was a question entered earlier in the chat, and that was, what do you mean, Jessie, by the horizon being lower in South Dakota?
Yeah, I just mean, when I was in the Pacific Northwest, there were mountains all around, and so and tall trees, and the sky was kind of up here. And now I'm in this area where there's this pretty vast, flat, very, very gently rolling land, and so just the sky goes down much further, and there are more of the teal colors of the sky as it gets lower, and it seems like with the different atmosphere here, sometimes I mean, it's not just that there are thunderstorms here and we didn't have them there, but there's also, the ice crystals in the air that make it a different color sometimes during the winter. And it's really different.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Yeah.
Awesome. One of Joan's favorite places to spend time is the Black Hills. Can you imagine exploring that area for painting, or have you?
Yeah. So the first place I went for this project was Custer State Park, and that area, and I'm planning to go back over to the west side and get more of the Black Hills, because that is definitely really unique. It's a really unique landscape and very different from here.
Dynamite. Sue wonders if you ever offer classes, or might you? All right. Yeah. Tell us about your class offerings.
Yeah, I just today opened up for registration just for people on my newsletter first, and who are already in classes. And it'll open to the public pretty soon. A workshop. I love to see people over a period of time and give people a chance to, instead of going into a workshop and just being really intense for a weekend, kind of coming back over and over again and getting to practice things and ask questions. And so I'm running a summer workshop that's like that. So it'll be twice a month for 3 months, and focusing on color. So it's for people who have already had some experience with painting, and we'll focus on different color themes. So real limited palette, um, and limited palette paintings are something that I'm really excited about. So I'm excited to share that. But I'm also doing composition workshop in the fall, but I haven't figured out the dates and all that stuff yet. So.
And are these in person or virtual or a hybrid of both? I'm sorry if you'd said that and I missed it.
Oh, no, I don't think I did. Yeah, it's all virtual right now.
Okay.
And
So one could be living here and take a class with you.
yeah, so far I've been running my classes for a year and a half now, I think. And there are people from different places in the country, and we meet on Zoom, and it's a small enough group that everybody knows each other. It's I don't know, it's nice. You get to know people.
Jeannie was wondering, what different colors did you add to your palette to capture the South Dakota light?
Oh boy. Well, I use the kind of traditional split primary palette. It has changed. Like, I keep searching for the right 5 or 6 colors to use. But the split primary palette is like a warm and cool yellow, a warm and cool red, a warm and cool blue. And so right now I just have one yellow. I don't find a lemon yellow to be a very friendly painting companion. So I have kind of a middle yellow. It's one of the cadmium-free cadmium yellows. And cadmium red, but it's a hue since I don't really want cadmium in my studio. And then for red, I'm using rose madder hue, which is a nice, cool red. And ultramarine blue, and then a cerulean blue. And then most of the time I'll just pick, and then also just recently I added black onto my palette. I did not use any black for I don't know, 20 years. and I just have recently added it in, mix things up. And then every once in a while I use a phthalo blue, which just because it's a gorgeous color. And convenience colors, like the convenience, like a yellow ochre. And usually I'll just pick 3 colors from my palette for one given painting, maybe 4 colors. And so, yeah.
How did you arrive at those? Was it simply trial and error or intuitive, or did you have some guidance?
Well, I knew that a lot of the like the plein painters and used that split primary palette, and the color palette I think is just, it's such an interesting thing. And I was always taught that red, yellow, and blue are the primaries, and red is somewhere that's, like right in the middle red. It's not as orange as a cadmium, and it's not as like violet-y as like quinacridone or anything like that. And then blue is like right in between, ultramarine and cerulean blue. And then those are the primary colors, and you can make everything from it. And of course they're not. And so having those 6 colors on the palette, it prevented me from realizing that those really aren't the primaries, because yellow and magenta and like a cyan are the primaries, and those are on the split primary palette. And so it's such a really interesting thing. But once I heard a couple people who are physicists and artists talking about that. And I realized that those are the colors I always buy for my printer. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, of course, that makes so much sense. And once I heard that, I kind of lost all faith in the colors on my palette, and I started really searching out what colors do I really, really want on here. And so I'm still in trial and error mode, but right now I have 6 little tubes of paint that are kind of a bluish red, and I've been trying them all out on different paintings and just seeing how I feel about it. And at one point I heard that you can mix cerulean blue from phthalo blue and ultramarine. It's like, well, in that case, then the phthalo blue is my primary, so of course I want that on there. But it was just so strong, it really dominated. So that was definitely trial and error that I went back to the cerulean blue.
Sure. Do you ever paint plein air outside in winter? Jeannie wants to know.
I have not. I want to, and I have been researching, like, how do you do that? What do you wear? Because I've been so nervous about lugging my stuff out there and lasting 10 minutes and disappointing myself, I guess. And so I have finally invested in proper gloves, and I feel like I'm ready to try when it's above zero, but below freezing. And but now it's nice and lovely and warm. So so I'll have to try next time it gets cold. So yeah, not yet. But
Good. Dennis has a question. Yeah.
Hi, Jeannie. Jessie, excuse me.
hi.
I know you're not solely a cow painter, but I'd like to make reference to those cows for a minute. Between cows and cats, they're a source of a whole lot of cute, pretty little things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have to guard against that. I mean, you're a long way from being cute with your work. Not you personally, but your cows. And I'm wondering if that's something you have to guard against, or doesn't that ever interfere with your process?
I try really hard not to be sentimental about the depiction of things. And well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I try really hard. Every once in a while I'll do a painting that's just like, okay, that's very, very sweet. But generally I kind of steer away from it. And
can you
I don't know, I guess yeah, it's funny. It's like what reaction you want from people. I guess I want something a little less subtle than like, oh. And I don't know why. It's just what I want to express. But it's true. They are cute. They're adorable.
Can you put into words what it is that separates the cute image from what you do?
Yeah. So like one of my paintings that's there is called Herd, and there are these cows kind of in a line, and then towards the back there's this mom cow kind of leaning back and like touching the baby cow, and it's very sweet. And I love that. And oh yes, so this one's leading the herd. Do you also have the one that's like a little bit more?
I don't know that we do.
Oh, okay. But there's a similar thing in the one that you brought up, where in the back there's kind of this mom and baby, and here too you see them, but they're just kind of they're like together. But I have one painting that I think might be there where they're actually touching noses, and that's the focal point. And I feel like that one kind of went over into this is just about it being sweet. Whereas this one feels like it's more about the companionship aspect of, in the back there, you can see the baby cow and there's a relationship, but it feels like more subtle than when they're specifically like touching noses or, I don't know. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, thanks.
Were there any other questions?
Well, I'm going to bother you with one more.
Yay.
If I could see your work a year from now,
Yeah.
would it be noticeably different given what you said about goals?
It would be subtly different. I'm still very much interested in relationships and like connection and animals and people and kids. And I think my subject will be the same subject. My mark making, I feel like the difference will be subtle. Like if you're looking for it, you will see it, but if you're not looking for it, maybe you won't. My thin paint will probably be a little thinner, and my thick paint will be a little bit thicker. And the marks might be more varied, like thick and thin. So yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for asking questions. I appreciate it.
We have another question in the chat, and I imagine this is related to plein air practice, but maybe studio practice as well. And is that, do you paint at different times of day? And if you do you go back the next day at the same time to work on that piece again?
Yeah, so in the studio, I get to just power through for as long as I want, until life intervenes, I guess. I did have a really fun time this year at, there's a plein air event in DeSmet every year, and I went back a couple days to paint some horses at this ranch, and just the light had changed too much, and it's like, this is why people come back the next day. So I did, and that was actually really exciting. Yeah, so yeah.
Where else might we see your work, Jessie?
Yeah, so people on my newsletter see sketches and things I don't put anywhere else. And then, of course, I have a website, and Art Resources Gallery, close to you, or in your neck of the woods at least. And then Shane Gallery in North Carolina, and the South Dakota Art Museum gift shop.
Dynamite. And when you mention your newsletter that has special subscriber-only viewings of things, how does one get on that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. If you go to jessierasche.com, and then click on Contact on the top menu, you'll get a form, and I only want to send people as much as they want, so you can let me know if you want to hear about workshops, or if you just want to hear from me once a month, or if you want to see every new painting. Yeah.
Dynamite. And I imagine you also communicate upcoming educational opportunities, workshops and classes and whatnot through that.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Dynamite.
yeah, I love my subscribers, so they always get first news about everything.
And you're on social media as well. I mean,
am.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. My handle's just Jessie Rasche, and YouTube also. It's just Jessie Rasche. And yeah, so if people want to draw with me in the morning, I'm there at 9.
Awesome. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for sharing your work with our community.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. It's a wonderful community and such an amazing facility. So yeah, thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the support of your membership and attendance. And as I mentioned, remember Walk of Art Hopkins, Friday, March 25th from 5 to 8, 6 to 8 here at the center. Check out our website for details. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.